They're calling it the digital equivalent of 9/11.
The defendants allegedly conducted what they called information warfare against the United States, with the stated goal of spreading distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general.
That's Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein announcing the indictment of 13 Russians for meddling in the 2016 election. As with 9/11, Russia's meddling turned existing infrastructure against the U.S. This time it wasn't planes flying into the World Trade Center. It was social media being used to swing an election.
The defendants allegedly used that infrastructure to establish hundreds of accounts on social media networks such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They also purchased political advertisements on social media networks.
That's right. You may have seen those ads on your Facebook feed. Here's just a sample. These ads were placed by Russian operatives posing as Americans on social media, inflaming tensions online, all in an attempt to stop Hillary Clinton from becoming president. The question now is, how does the U.S. respond to a cyber attack of this scale? Molly McKew is one of the world's leading experts on Russian disinformation, and she joins us from Washington. Hi, Molly. So it's been called information warfare. Just give us an idea of how effective, what kind of impact this had.
I think if you match up the narratives that were disclosed within the indictment, so the different areas where Russian information campaigns were focusing, these are themes that we saw debated and talked about very hotly during the U.S. election cycle, and these were areas where U.S. opinion shifted significantly over that time period. So I think you can absolutely say that the very targeted Russian information warfare achieved some of its goals.
What was the goal?
It was very specifically targeting far left and far right groups in the United States in order to sort of harden those information chambers and radicalize, for lack of a better word, these groups in terms of how they were interacting with politics and what their views were.
Was this an actual act of war?
It depends on how you define it. I absolutely believe that Russian information warfare counts as an act of war.
So what do the allies, Canada's one of them, where do they go next? Are we talking about a global cyber war? Are we talking about a global embargo against Russia? Where does this go?
I think there needs to be a lot more awareness about how Russia is using the information space against all of us and how that affects our societies. I think the first step in terms of response is informing the public about what this is and how it works. We in the United States are a bit behind because we have leadership in the White House that does not acknowledge that this is happening and does not help provide that kind of psychological defense by telling the public that this is what's happening and this is what it aims to achieve.
Something watching really a tweet storm from the president started last night, again this morning. The first one last night, President Trump saying it's very sad the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter, spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion. There is no collusion. So he's got his Justice Department basically indicting Russians for meddling in his election. And yet, here he is blaming the FBI. What's going on?
So the president's narrative on this has remained consistent, and I think it will continue to going forward, sort of lashing out against the FBI, undermining confidence in our counterintelligence agencies, which is not necessarily a great idea over time. But another part of his tweet storm was saying that all the investigations into what Russia has done have actually helped the Russians by providing more attention to all of this and creating kind of the churn and the chaos. And I know he wants to believe that, and certainly he's going to keep using that talking point. However, as these indictments move forward, as there are further sort of developments in this area, it will be harder for the president to deny that it happened.
So Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, was saying that the White House or that the Trump campaign officials were unwitting participants. Possible that the White House, that the Trump campaign advisors had no awareness of these efforts or no participation here?
So I think this was really a shot across the bow in terms of, we know your campaign was interacting with these Russians and with Russian activities. And for now, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You should do something about it. I think there was so much in the indictment that sort of lays out additional information that is yet to come out. Part of it was some of the Russian actors that were described were in the United States. This wasn't just people sitting in a room in St. Petersburg. People came here, they spent time in almost a dozen states looking around, gathering information. Who were they talking to? What were they doing? What were the goals of those meetings and sort of exploratory visits? All of that has yet to come out.
Do you have any information on whether Canada has been included in any of these disinformation campaigns by the Russians?
We're definitely tracking a few. There have been a lot of activities. More recently, looking at Canada, there's a lot of overlap that we've seen between some of the longer-term accounts, bots and other automated accounts that are running information campaigns in the United States that also have a Canadian footprint. And I think we need to look at that more, but I think all of us, every NATO ally is targeted by these campaigns, and we need to understand more clearly what they aim to achieve in Canada as well.
So much more to keep an eye on. Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you.
Molly McKew in Washington.